So on that particular day, I read it 2 times.
Only about power and politics, but it's been...
It strikes your thought process, I would say. It is always said that he was always ahead of time.
Beyond that, it's about the reality of society. And it all started from an imagination.
Annual form is never enough, I would say.
And how society actually works and changes.
It is said that this book was ahead of time. No publisher wanted to publish this book. Maybe you could just sense that there is something coming up.
Satire to what group of the world? Our audience might be a little confused about what we are actually talking because they have not been through the book. Am I audible? Welcome to the Book Talk, presented by the Bookwishes Club. Animal Farm. What is the first thing that comes in your mind when you hear this word? Of course, animals, right? And today we are going to discuss about this very book, Animal Farm by George Orwell. But surprisingly, it's not about animals. And what it is actually about, we will figure out in a while. So hello book lovers, welcome to the 8th episode of the Book Talk. Today we have with us our another esteemed guest, who is an enthusiastic youth and also an ardent reader, Mr. Pratik Satyal. Let's welcome him. Welcome to the Book Talk.
Thank you, Seleska, and thank you, Bookwishes Club, for giving me the opportunity. And every team on the background, the editor especially.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Mr. Satyal. Firstly, I would like to ask you, what is your motivation behind reading this book, or why did you choose to read this?
Choosing this book is a random affair, I'll say. It's a random thing. One of my friends introduces me this book. I think back in 2013, I started reading this one. But I think back in 2013, there was Arab uprising going on in the Middle East. There were lots of conflict, and we do talk among ourselves about lots of political things. And then he suggested to go through the Animal Farm, and that I actually happened to read it while going from my house at Bhaktapur to my undergraduate school back then, to Kathmandu University during my bus tour. That's how I try to manage my time. So that's where I read the Animal Farm. So that's how I get connected to the Animal Farm, and then to the George Orwell kind of world.
Okay, so that was your first experience of reading this book, and how many times have you been through it, or is it just that?
I'd say I have been going through it 5th time. I read it couple or twice back then. I think I remember one event where I was at the second last bench of my class. I think it was a computer architecture or something back then in my engineering days, and I happened to just not get interested in the engineering kind of world in the class, but I have to, and then I started reading George Orwell at that time. So on that particular day, I read it 2 times on the same time.
Okay.
So I started, I was in the middle of something in the book. So I finished the book that day. And then I asked my friends, I didn't actually understand the book. So then I started reading again in the same class. So that's how I get it. And then I read it. I think sometimes I go back to the words of the Animal Farm. Sometimes I think it, sometimes in my own life, and that's why I happen to read it. I think it's my 5th time, maybe. Yes.
Are you planning to read more in coming days?
Not really now.
It's enough.
No, it's not enough. I think Annual Farm is never enough, I would say. It's never enough. Maybe you could just sense that there is something coming up. If you want to relate to any kind of thing, then it gives you some thought, and it strikes your thought process, I would say. And maybe in the future, but not now. Maybe I'll go into another book, or maybe in the meantime I'll not read anything. Sometimes you don't have to read anything. I think that's also the basic thing, that sometimes I do not read anything. So I think for now, no.
Okay. So yes, same experience that happened with me. Like you said, once is not enough for this book. So जब हजुरले चाहिँ यो book suggest गर्नुभयो, so when I went through it surfacely, then I kind of thought like it's about animals. It's a fun kind of story. So what is there to actually explain about? But I knew at the back of my mind that there is something mysterious behind of this, because it's already mentioned that it is a political satire and allegory.
Yeah, it's both the allegory and the political satire. I'd say यसमा ठ्याक्कै अलिकति डिफरेन्ट चाहिँ के थियो भन्दाखेरि we talk about mostly about the system, the building of the system. We mostly talk about we don't know how those systems come into the being at the present moment. The different kind of system. It's not only the political system. Anything can be a political system. Anything cannot be a political system. So the interaction that you have with the different masses of the people, I think that's you start with the idealism kind of thing and you move into the certain kind of so it is somehow termed as a revolution and counter-revolution kind of thing. It's of course the political satire. I think George Orwell has actually said that he likes to write in terms of the political world, but as an art form. And sometimes he also, I think in the book, I think Why I Write, I think George Orwell has another book, Why I Write. I think in that त्यसमा चाहिँ थोरै उहाँले चाहिँ के भन्नुभएको छ भन्दाखेरि I think I don't remember the words too much vaguely, but I think he said that I write to tell the lies and to aware the people. So that's why I go into the political satire kind of thing. So and of course since it is the character are built from the animals, but you don't feel like they are the animals while reading. Yes,
definitely.
So I think it's an allegory. So in that sense, it's a different kind of politics, and it's a satire as well. It's a satire to the world, and you have to know that the context of when it was published, it was I think around the time of 1943, the end of the World War II. But there were different contexts going on before that. So I think and it is said that this book was ahead of time. Because no publisher wanted to publish this book at that time, at that particular time. And then suddenly after 4 years, George Orwell has another book. I'll not go into much more. The 1984, they are kind of talk in between, and they are kind of similar kind of things. And it is always said that he was always ahead of time. So maybe at the time he didn't, though these two books are the most famous of George Orwell, but there are others. But these two make him that. But at that time, it was not that famous.
Okay. So it's contextual at this era now, more than that time. It's
contextual back then as well. But it didn't find the audience back then. So it's a sad thing. Yeah.
So, as you mentioned George Orwell a lot of time, I can already see that you're a huge fan of his writings. Are you?
Yeah, so, I'm quite a big fan of his writing, both from the Animal Farm and 1984, and I have sometimes veer into the Why I Write, that kind of thing. But I really like 1984. When I read the Animal Farm and 1984 together, I kind of somehow relate those books together. Yeah, there is somehow the connections, and it's every time you read it, you sort of kind of, it's not a historical kind of thing. It's certain, it's at the moment it is happening with me, maybe with anyone. So you feel that you are into it. So, and you think that, okay, the system has changed from this processes to this processes. But now, it seems that, okay, let's go back to the Animal Farm then. And so you think of kind of like, let's go back to the Animal Farm. So what does it say? Then you get the new kind of processes back there. So I think it always happens like that, or it doesn't happen like that. So you sort of had the contrary type of mind and try to self-evaluate yourself. I think that's why, and it has a good personality in it. I like the author. I like the simple kind of language he used. As I said, the animal doesn't look like the animal. Yes. They're actually visual perspective that they're the speaking animals in the book, but you don't find the speaking animals in reality, though they have their own languages, but the way we speak. But and then the way they interact within the book, it feels like that. Okay, this kind of world actually exists.
It is existing.
Yeah. So and that's why I really like the author.
Okay. So our audience might be a little confused about what we are actually talking because they have not been through the book. So you can just tell a little bit about the context, that what this book is actually about, the satire to what group of the world or something to our audience.
So I'll start. The first time I read the book, I didn't have the historical background of how the book was written. So I just read it as a book.
Mm-hmm.
So over here, there is a farm. I think the chapter 1, there are 10 chapters basically within the books. So chapter 1 starts with a farm. Name is Manor Farm actually. The Manor Farm, and then there is a revolution within the animals, that they have to make sure that the human or the main owner of the farm has to be should not be controlling them, because they are the one producing all the things, the crops they are producing, the eggs they are producing, the milks produced by the cows, and the horse, the boxer, the hardworking one who is pulling the cart, and then there is a Benjamin, another character in the book, that's the Benjamin, who is a donkey, but he has some wisdom, but he doesn't speak much, and he also does the hard work and lots of things, the straw, and then there are pigeons, and then the pigs. The pigs are the major character here.
They are the leaders.
Yeah. So that's how the setting of the book actually starts with how the animal farm is, and then there are two, Mr. Jones, one of the human character, and then the animal character.
Yeah.
So somehow they felt that the animal are doing all the labors. So why should we do all the labors and Mr. Jones, the human character, bear all the fruit or drink all their milks? Why we cannot have our own food? So lots of, and that kind of conversation goes around the animal world. And they're actually having the conversation. And that's how the term is, that we have to do a rebellion. And then there is a old major, I think, it's an old major. The old major has a dream. It's just basically the first chapter. The old major has a dream that one day they could be free of all the humans, and they could run their own farm, and they could have all the fruits that they are producing, and they could share equality to all the animals, all of those things. So he actually had the speech within the farm in the night. When the Mr. Jones and his wife, it's sleeping in their farmhouse, drinking beer and all of those things, and that's how the context of the book actually starts.
Yes.
So the rebellion actually starts from a dream. Someone has a dream that you could get all those things that are put down by the humans, and you could actually work for yourself, that kind of thing, and you could just distribute equally. And then the speech, I think, it steers the animal thoughts, those who could thought. The pigs are the more wiser one, and old major is also one of the pigs. So, and then suddenly they think all, and then they, I think they had a slogan that
the beast song or something.
The Beast of England.
Yeah, Beast of England.
The Beast of England. So they had a song and they sing together and all, and then they rejoice within the singing, that they feel that it's the
That's
time
actually
to
the protest against Mr. Jones.
The Beast of England is not a protest actually. The Beast of England would be somehow the romantic kind of things, where they had the green pasture, all the fish put together, and when they could do the sunbath in the high hills, just grazing across the green fields, and they could just have their own corn and something like that. So it actually is a song that
voice for their rights.
Yeah, voice for their rights. So that's how it actually starts. And then suddenly the old major speeches goes on, but he dies.
Yeah.
And then they said that from the old major that all humans are enemy. All animals are friends. That's how it all started. And then there were two other major characters in there, the Snowball and Napoleon. The Snowball was quite he had a quite kind of deep, fiery speeches. He was quite tactful, and he thought that the revolution has to go beyond the farm. He had that kind of vision. Napoleon was he didn't speak much, but he also has the authoritative kind of aura within that group. And then but his thought was that the farm would be only the farm that would be revolutionized, not the other neighboring farms. There were other neighboring farms. And then suddenly then they had the 7 commandments. After Old Major died, they have the 7 commandments. Just before that, I think, no, just after the 7 commandments were actually all 4 legs are good. 2 legs bad.
Yeah, 2 legs.
And then the birds had to say that, okay, we don't have the 4 legs, we only had 2 legs. So, and then they had the rationalization that birds actually have the wings. That is much more bigger than the 2 legs. So all 4 legs and have wings are friends, and all the 2 legs are enemy. And no animal tried to wear the human clothes. No animal tried to drink alcohol.
Sleep in the bed.
No animal tried to sleep in the bed, and all animals are equal. Yeah. So those were the 7 commandments they made. But just before that, I think there was a battle of just before that, at one night they attacked Mr. Jones, and then all the humans in the animal farm, the Mr. Jones were ousted from his own farm, and now it was all over control within the animals, and the leaders or the wisest ones, the pigs, the Snowball and Napoleon were the main 2 who guided their thoughts, and that the 7 commandments has to rule. And there was a green flag hoisted with the green flag, and then the rationale that goes that the green indicates all the green fields of England, and then I think there was a horn and the hook, I think. Okay. So it was a symbolization kind of thing. So they hoisted a flag of their own flag. And then I think at some point the Jones and his men came back to just have another revolt. But at this time the Snowball was a wise thinker, so he has the defensive fort set up. So he has the different ambush kind of thing, all those things with all the animals, and then they attack the Mr. Jones and his allies attack the farm, but Snowball was leading the Tsars, all the defensive front, and they won the battle actually. The battle was called the Battle of Cowset, and then suddenly that they remember that we have to celebrate this all the time, and then they have the anniversary kind of thing that got into their own mixer. Okay. So they also celebrated the anniversary of the Battle of Cowset. They gave the medal to those one who fought bravely. One of them was Snowball, and then it was called, I think, the first medal, annual first class first medal, something like that. And then they had another kind of medal, the second medal. They give to the animals, and that's how now all the revolution was gone. The counter revolution was also revolted. All those things was going on, but then there was something happening within the pigs. Snowball was the wiser one. He wants to move out of the farm, and then they also renamed the manor farm into the animal farm. That's how the book got the name, the animal farm. So first Mr. Jones had the manor farm. Now it is animal farm. So that's how now the language has a little bit shifted to different dimension. And then the Napoleon was the fierce, authoritative kind of thing. So he took control. Snowball was ousted from the farm now. Now he was the leader. Now all the interaction was going on. Before that, Snowball had the vision that they would be building a windmill that would supply their electric power, and then they will have the 3-day a week working days, and then they will have the hot water within theirs while they are bathing. That's sort of vision he projected, and then but Napoleon was against the idea of building the windmill. He wanted to build an army within the place so that they could actually fortify the place and all those things. But suddenly the Napoleon ousted Snowball, and then he was kicked out of the farm. That's how the totalitarian or something like the system actually started over there. And now Napoleon took control. But to support the Napoleon, there was another pig now, the Squealer.
Yes, the manipulator.
The manipulator or the propagandist, we call it. So whenever Napoleon was doing something out of the ordinary of the 7 commandments, then the scholar would jump into the masses, and he would say that, no, it's
Justify the things.
Justify the things. So the pigs have to do all this kind of leadership kind of thing. They have to think, so they have to do major work. You don't see it, but they are working for you. The Napoleon is working for you. That kind of narration was given by the scholar outside to the animals, all the animals, so that and then the fearful thing he always speaks at the end is, do you want Jones back?
Yeah.
that kind of fear installation was going.
Threatened.
Yeah, threatened. So if somebody questions, Napoleon or our leader was doing all those things for you, do you want Jones back again? And then they will be fearing that coming back of the Jones coming back and taking over the farm. And then suddenly he reared some of the dogs, the big growling dogs, and he has his 6 dogs alongside whenever he won. The Napoleon won. The 7 commandments were not changed. The pigs started using the farmhouse. That was before used by Jones for all the recreation, all of those things. And at the first meeting, it was decided that no animal will be using the farmhouse. No one will be using the clothes or the seats, all of those 7 commandments. Now Napoleon was using the farmhouse. Now the animals were questioning, but then the rationale again came from the scholar is that he's doing for you. And he will have the guards around with the dogs. So if somebody questions during the meetings or the assembly, something like that, then the dogs will be barking, they will be threatening ones, and the Napoleon will be doing all those things. The plan that Napoleon didn't come up with the snowball about building the windmill, because he was against building the windmill. Now he wanted to build it. Now they started building it. So the scholar was again the main informer here. He was saying that Napoleon was never against the plan to build a windmill. He actually was with it. But Snowball was somehow against Napoleon. And that's how the propaganda actually started. They started building the windmill, but I think at 1 November or something like that. In November, the book speaks of particular November. They have the fiercest wind that came up in the night. They had the windmill that was constructed halfway, and then in the morning it was just all down. So they have to do it all those things together. During the construction of the windmill, they have to work 11 hours a day. All the animals, they have their ration cut out. They were not getting much more supply of the food. So that sort of system they were. But the animal actually thought that they are working for the greater cause to build a windmill that will supply in the future a utopian kind of thing where they will be working for 3 days a week. And they will have enough supply of food. They will have the warm water, all of those things. And then again, Napoleon again had the propaganda set up that it is the Snowball who destroyed the windmill. So Snowball is the enemy. He's the enemy now. So, and then there was an assembly where Napoleon called and he asked who was plotting against us. Who is with the Snowball? Then somehow the fear of Napoleon got over the animals, and they came forward that, okay, I had the dream yesterday to kill you. And then Napoleon killed that animal. From the first commandment, no animal shall kill another animal. It was the first commandment that was established in the utopian kind of thing, the 7 commandments. And now the commandments has suddenly changed.
All the rules were being broken one by
all
one.
the rules were changed. All the rules were changed. At the end, the 7 commandments never came up. There was just one maxim now. 4 legs bad. So 4 legs good, 2 legs better. So 2 legs bad. 2 legs bad and 4 legs good. So only that commandment was established. And at the now, when the animals were not into the animal with the human beings to trade, now Napoleon started to trade with the human beings. There was a character, Mr. Whimper. The whimper was the trader. At one point, he asked for 400 eggs to sell at the, I think Wellington is the name of the place where they try to sell it. And then now the animals started to trade with the humans, the pigs, the Napoleon. And then there was at one time, by establishing all the windmill, they have the food shortage, all of those things. And then at one point, there was a rumor going around that the animal farm has the food shortage and it is not doing well across the other farms. There was a Pinkleton and the Firewood. I think I forgot the name, but there were two farms. But to suppress the rumor, what Napoleon did was he had the pool of sand in a box, and at the top of that sand, he had put all the grains in a can. So, and basically the Mr. Whimper came around and saw that, there are lots of grains around and there is no shortage. So that's how the rumors got around. So, the rumors was the animal farm is doing pretty much great. The windmill are doing great. The end of book is quite interesting here at chapter 10. At the chapter 10 now, the neighboring farm, came into their houses for the trade and all the discussion. They are now drinking the whiskey. They are drinking the beer, the pigs, along with the humans. And suddenly the other animals, heard a lot of laughter. And they picked, from one of the windows. And they saw that, the Napoleon was with all the other, human beings. The Pinkleton, I think it's the pronunciation, and then they were drinking the whiskey and the beer. All of those were drinking the whiskey. Just before that, the animal got surprised at one thing, that the pigs were now starting to stand on two legs, on the hind legs.
Like humans.
They are dressing like humans. They have all the coats and all of the things. Napoleon was now called the leader. He was not called by the name Napoleon. The pigs were actually had a school kind of thing. They educated them. And they were quite educated in terms of alphabet or something like that. The other animals could not read. They tried to read, but they couldn't read, and they just drop it out. So the education system was also much more within the pigs. They were reading all those things. They were having the files, reports, all of those things. They are living the farmhouse, and they are doing all the things that humans are now doing. And then all the animals that peeked through the window now, was the end is quite satisfying to me, that they looked from pig to man, man to pig, and pig to man again. And they couldn't differentiate which was which. So they couldn't differentiate actually the pig or the human. So they were all confused. And that's how the end of the book actually happens. But just before that, there are lots of things that carries to that end. So that's how the book is actually, the overall kind of book.
So basically there are a lot of characters that George Orwell is talking about and a lot of instances, but they are not actually the stories of like it is written straight away in a very simple way like an Animal Farm story. There are a lot of things hidden behind every characters and every situation. So what does it actually portray now? It's about revolution, definitely. Yeah, it's a story of revolution and counter-revolution. So we have to know that George Orwell was born in India. He never went to the university, but he was quite good at writing. He did a lot of essay. He also had some statement about the working class, because it was the time of the Great Depression during the 1930s and the World War and the World War II. And then he also joined Catalonia War in Spain in 1936. Before that, he went to Burma in a war. So he basically was saying all those things in a war. But in Spain, in Catalonia, he somehow got into the sense of the then Soviet Union, the Soviet Union, and he sensed that there is something going on there. So that's how he got the sense that. And then 1937, 1939, the start of the World War II again started. The book came in 1943. In 1944 or 1945, the three great powers, the Russia, US and UK, were having an agreement
the Alta Conference. I think it's called the Alta Conference, where they set out all those boundaries of the Europe and the Germanies, mostly the Germans and the Europes. So it basically started with, and then in 1917, I think in 1917, the First World War started. Russia was involved in it, but the population was against it. 1917 and 1922, the 5 years, it was a civil war within Russia.
Okay.
So mostly the animal farm is mostly it's most related to the Russian revolutions, but somehow and then the character also symbolize those kind of things. So I'll start a brief before that. So just on the timeline, 1905 was the time when Russia went into the Japanese war.
Okay.
The war was basically who controls the Korea and the other islands over there. Japanese won the war. At that time, Nicholas Caesar II was the head. But what happened is that during that time there were lots of famine. Lots of people died for not getting the food. There was not enough food. The one that went into the war, they didn't have any weapons, any arms, but they were at the front line. So that's how, and it was against. So, and the people revolted. I think 50,000 or 20,000 people went into the palace of the Caesar with a petition. The workers, who had to do 11 hours of work. That's how you have to remember that in animal farm, they were doing the 11-hour work.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And they wanted to have a 3-day work, and they didn't have the food supply, enough food supply. And they were not kind of getting all the things that was promised. And back then in 1905 was also the similar kind of thing. They didn't have the food supply. Russia was also going into the industrial kind of revolution. There were lots of industries going on. They have to go to the war with the Japanese, but they didn't have the supplies in terms of machineries, in terms of guns. And that's how people were a little bit depressed, and they were revolting against. And then they went with a petition that they didn't want to work 11-hour week without any food. But I think they got revolted back. I think there were 10,000 or 1,000 people killed in that time. And then there was now the Caesar. Nicholas was ousted, and then the provisional government was set up. I think it was Kerency. The name was Kerency. But what happened is that people wanted to come out of the war. But in 1914, 1917, Russia again went into the World War, World War I. So World War I has also the historical precedents with the Austria-Hungary and all those, the prince killing up. But Russian people were against it. And then there was one party, the Bolshevik party, that started revolution that was against going into the war. So they were called the Reds, and they were the Whites. The Whites were supported by the Western allies, mostly the US. That's and they got, but the Reds were winning the internal civil war. And in 1922, Lenin came into the power. He has the thought that all the socialist country would be all alongside, and then they had the back then it was Russia. Then they had the USSR, the Soviet Republic. All the republics around, they can function independently, but they will be controlled by the central state in Moscow or by the USSR head. In 1924, Lenin died. So in that context, the world major is sometimes referred to as the Lenin. Over here, who has the dream of the utopian, but he is also sometimes referred to as a Karl Marx, who has the utopian dream where the all the land ownership, the private ownership would be abolished, and all the people will have there will be public ownership. Wealth will be distributed equally among all the people. That was the thought, actually. So while the USSR was going on with the socialism or something like that, and then they actually had the control within the state, but some can also have their own food grains for profit. So it was kind of the balance kind of thing. But in 1924, Lenin died. So world major also dies in the book. And then there were two, Trotsky and Stalin. So Trotsky is a snowball here.
Okay.
Stalin is a Napoleon in the book. So that's how they relate to each other. Somehow Stalin get rid of the Trotsky, and Stalin got into the power just like the Napoleon did over here, and they had the feud with the Germany. So that's how the Pilkington farm came into the being. The Pilkington and the other is the Germany and the Great Britain or the England. I think it's Great Britain. Similar kind of thing. So that's how the character actually built. The boxer who was doing all the, I'll work harder. His motto was, I'll work harder. Napoleon is always right. That's the end of his. So the boxer actually established hardworking people that was working hard back in Russia. And then there was all the characters over there. So that's how all the characters were shaped into the Russian kind of revolution. So that's the context overall can be taken. So it's the part of the revolution and the counter revolutions. And Orwell, there is one thing that Orwell did with all this, how he came into this one. So at one point, I think it's around 1928, he went north of the England to see how the workers actually live their life. So he went into their pub, the workers' pub. So they're all laughing. They will have all the bad jokes, all those things. How the cafe actually works, and he saw that they are really happy. They will have only that kind of beer, only the amount of beer that their wages allows, not much more than. So they were kind of happy. So he started to see that, and the many of the author outside of Orwell thinks that Orwell had the notion at that time in 1928 that unemployment is the problem and socialism is the answer before going north. So after seeing all the happy faces, all the beers and all the jokes, and he came back and he thought that socialism is the problem, unemployment is not the problem. So that's how he got. And 1928 is the big thing because in 1930s, it was a great economic depression. There was all the unemployment going on within the England. He's the English author. And then 1943, 44 and all those things that Russia was against Germany. Russia has a pact with Germany. So there is a one context within the Animal Farm that Napoleon had the agreement to sell the timber with one of the human beings outside the farm, Mr. Pilkington. And then he gave him the check to sell, but the check bounced back, just like today's system. It bounced back. It never had the money. So he was tricked. Just like that, Russia and Germany had the pact in Second World War that they would not be fighting each other; they will be supporting each other. But suddenly Germany attacked, and they were into the Moscow, Stalingrad, Leningrad, those kind of barrier, and it was a huge thing. But at that time, the Animal Farm, the animals were actually they had lots of soldiers injured. But they fought bravely and they won the war. So it also happened in the real life that that the USSR back then could actually support their fronts, and they actually defeated the Germany, and it was also of a little bit winter that helped us. So it somehow contextualized into the World War phenomenon. But Orwell speaks much more than the World War only the Russian Revolution. For my personal taste, within the Animal Farm, he talks much more about how the revolution shapes up, how the utopian comes into the being, how power are abused, just like Napoleon did with the whiskey and the beer. The beer started, all the rules were changed. How truth can be talked about, can be lies. And the lies are always faded, and it somehow symbolizes the truth. That's what the Squiller did. And back then, within the Russia, they had the Pravda or Pravda. There was a newspaper where all the propaganda were placed in. Russia was also having lots of shortages within the food back then. But somehow it was portrayed that there is enough food. There are lots of people. There is another incident within the Russia, but I think I'll not talk. But just to mention it, there is a Gulag archaeopolic, that kind of book. The name, the Gulag, where people were jailed over there. They were tortured. And they were killed, basically. So it is estimated that during that time, I think 10 million to 12 million people were killed.
Okay.
So that sort of things come into the being within the animal farm. But Orwell talks about the system, how the processes shapes up, how the propaganda are surrounded, are taught, how education actually wises you up, how misinformation are set up. This is a problem of today's as well. It was a problem back then as well. And then how the system interact with you. So even the hard worker, just like the boxer, has to die, because his motto was, "I'll always work harder," and Napoleon is always right. He was not against it. Those who were against it, they were suppressed. So the system always. So you have to always have the critical mindset within the system. So back then when I read it in 2013, I somehow related with the Maoist revolution over here in Nepal. Maybe it is not within that task.
I could also relate somehow while reading the book. Like, it's similar. Yeah. It's about the Russian Revolution and the global thing. But in our nation too, we have had this animal farm kind of situation, for sure.
There was a play I recently watched. The Animal Farm was adapted into a play. It was in one of the theater in Teku. I kind of like the theater, so the Animal Farm was adapted. I somehow didn't much fancy that play, because at that time I think it was the tussle between the CPI-UML chairman and the Maoist chairman, because they were having the same party back then. So it was much more given into the political shape. But Orwell, it's much more than the political shape. It talks about the class. All the different people, all animals are equal. How the classless system or society can be formed. At the first instant, the world major has the vision that all the classless. It also comes from the Marx idea that all the workers unite and there will be all the classless system. And at the end, the utopian world is something like that. There is no state. All have the equal distribution of property, equal distribution of wealth. And then at the I think utopian idea is that there will be no state. That's the whole idea. So the beginning of the Animal Farm is also a classless society. And I also try to think that we also have that kind of invasion while our country was into the civil war. That it was because of the class division that we went into the war, and we have to have the revolution just to make sure that all the people get equal wealth. The people from the far corner, everything. Well, not only the private ownership are taken, but the public ownership also has to be there. And so that's how the revolution actually happened. So if you look at the video, I used to look at the video back then of the Maoist Revolution rebellion here. I don't know. So there is lots of terminology used now. I'm not quite sure. Being a student of here at the Conflict, Peace and Development Study back in TU, I had the master's. So I also had the studies similar to the Maoist one. So there were lots of terminology. There was Maoist insurgency used sometimes. Sometimes it's the use of civil war. Sometimes we don't say it's a civil war. It's lots of things. But just to take up with the Animal Farm to that place is that we also wanted to have some classless society where everyone has an equal distribution of wealth. We still talk about it. At the same time, we also want to distribute all the private ownership. We want to have it much more. The public ownership has to be much more. That's how the interaction is going on. So it's the mixed system of both the socialism and the capitalism somehow. And we also wanted to go into that part. And I think back then when I read at the first go, I kind of think back to that kind of revolution. So how it happened. So it can be related to any kind of revolution. Back then when it was if it has to contextualize within the author perspective, author is saying much more. But somehow when it was written, all the context fit in. So that's how the Russian Revolution came in. So that's why I told at the first go that Orwell was ahead of his time. So yeah.
So it's basically not only about power and politics, but it's beyond that. It's about the reality of society and how society actually works and changes.
Yeah.
And it all started from an imagination.
Yeah, it's
Of a wise person.
Yeah, of a wise person. So a wise person has the utopian kind of settings, and then there are the individual power, the individual wisdom, the individual vision, and they want to take up the power, or they want to distribute the power. For Snowball, it was much more about getting all the revolutions all around the country, beyond the animal farm, beyond the manor farm, all the neighboring farm. It was the vision of the Snowball over here in the book as well. The Napoleon wanted to have only one country that has that kind of system. So he want to have all the control within the system, and that's the tussle I think we're also doing within our country. So at the institution level, we can just jump it from institution level to the middle level or to the grassroots level. So at the grassroots level, there are hierarchy of societies. I think it has not been that much where we have been talking about how the caste differentiation are actually lagging the people behind in the rural settings or within the urban setting as well. It has come to somehow normalize kind of thing now, and somehow people have got out of the caste, but there are still some of the cultural studies going on. It's the part of the society. So that's where the alignment with the animal farm actually starts. So the 7 commandments actually went into the changing, and when they were said that no animal shall kill another animal, then the command actually started: no animal shall kill another animal without causes.
Okay.
So with causes you can kill the animal. So that's how it got translated into the other thing. So the milk and the apple was actually eaten by the pigs only. So what the rationale is that the pigs has to use their brain power more, so they have to feed in more.
Yeah.
In the Snowball time, there was in the book there were different committee formed. There was a committee, there was a reading committee, there was a classroom. But Napoleon thought that only the pigs can read, and they should be reading those things. And now also we also fight that who goes into the who have the accessibility. I'll say the accessibility, who have the accessibility to actually use the service of the institutions. So that's how we also have the understanding that do we want more university in the country, or it's beyond that. But we also want to have it much more accessible by all the people from all over the country. So it comes down into the equal distribution of wealth, and then equal and the accessibility to that. So we are still doing the same thing, and it still hasn't come into the fruition. So whenever the revolution comes, whenever it comes into the war, there is always one phrase that goes on. That's the Aurelian word.
Okay.
So that's how it relates to every kind of thing.
Okay, so far by the discussion till now, that I have also understood by your explanation is that it's basically about today's context also, not only the World War time, and it's about any kind of revolution. And the animal farm is portraying some kind of country. It's a representation of some kind of countries, or what is the farm you're actually resonating to?
The farm,
the different farms are representing different countries, right?
So the animal farm is actually built into, first it was not built into that. The animal farm, the manor farm, is actually representing Russia or USSR. The Pinklington, I think I forget the pronunciation of the name, or I don't know. I think the Pinklington actually denotes Germany.
Okay.
Germany. And then there is the firewood. No, I think there is another farm, that the neighboring farm that starts with the F. It represents Britain. So it again goes back to the same kind of World War settings.
Okay. So though back then it was denoting some kind of nations, but now I think we can generalize it to any part of the world, and because the differences always exist. And this problem is being faced.
That's what I fear, actually. That's what I fear. Do we have the sense of generalization over here, or do we want to learn that the truth shouldn't be speak from the lies? The power corrupts, and it has to be controlled. We have to question every decision of the leaders. Back in the animal farm, the animals could not actually question the leader, and whenever they questioned, they were killed. So what kind of system we are building into? So if some institution we question into, so that's how the democratic world kind of shapes up. So we have and then there is a you can use the term like the freedom, what freedom actually means. So the animal thought that they had the freedom there because they were doing their own work. That's the kind of thing. When they were doing the 11 hours of work a day to just build a windmill, they thought that because it's all controlled by us. It's controlled by the animal, not by the humans, not by the animal outside world. So they have all the freedom. They thought that they have all the freedom. They forgot that they had more ration back in the Jones time than in Napoleon time. Then they thought that it was for the better future, and we are getting all the rations within ourselves. They thought that. So that was the kind of freedom that they live in. So the Orwellian society actually thought that it actually portrays that it's not only about all. Maybe it's the context is geopolitical back then. Maybe it's summarized, it's narrated back then because the timeline actually matches and all of those things. Yeah. It does matches, but we cannot generalize all the geopoliticals within there. So, but we can question that how power corrupts. Okay. There also power corrupts. How Napoleon was using the wealth for his own good. Okay. All the milk, all the apples were eaten by him, not distributed among the things. How propaganda are distributed around, just like when he had the bin half filled with the sand, and at the top it was grains, and so on, that there is lots of food and we have enough things to trade. That's how the propaganda actually starts. So whenever someone questions, the propaganda again surfaces through the squealer that Napoleon is doing for your own good, and do you want the Jones back? The fear of getting someone from the past actually also haunts them. So you are, and then there are dogs. Okay. The dogs are actually, I think it's called NKVD within the Russian things. So the dogs were the guards. They were instilling fear that if someone questions them, they will be howling, they will be crawling in front of them, and then the person or the animal who is actually questioning Napoleon.
They are protecting the leaders.
Yeah,
basically.
they are protecting the leaders, and they are not serving the animals the anyhow. Nations. But animal has the illusion that they are actually free. So it depicts what freedom is actually. So, and then Orwellian always asks that you have to question, you have to have your own rational judgment, and you have to be educated. That's the thing that he
education and poverty, these things are actually emphasized here as well. So basically, you bhannu this book is about how can general population raise their voice for good governance, or एउटा चाहिँ पोलिटिकल सिस्टम कस्तो हुनुपर्छ, or सोसाइटी कस्तो हुनुपर्छ, or democratic society को essence के हो, and education is important, and there are class differences, all these things that it portrays, if I'm not wrong.
भन्न सकिन्छ, तर too much generalization पनि not good भन्छु कहिले. You can generalize all the political systems. You can generalize all the geopolitical systems that the book has the historical carryover, or you can just see all the wars, conflict in the same settings. How there is a saying, power corrupts itself, and absolute power corrupts. That kind of thing. So it's a matter of fact that the book is trying to portray. It's again. George Orwell has himself said that it's a political satire. Yes. Though through the characters of animals that have the, what do you call that? It's called a fable. I think it's called a fable. The fable is basically, in the sense that, they try to give a moral perspective at the end of the story. And sometimes when you are doing the revolutions or the counter-revolutions, the revolutions, the thought of the revolution or the basis of revolutions just change over time. That's how the animal forms, and that's how we can also relate to all the systemic changes that we have seen or we have heard or we have read in our country, in our own institution. It doesn't have to be in a country, I would say. It can be just, one institutions. So I think it can be within a classroom. When you are selecting when you are selecting a class representative monitor, and then there is a higher election, then who goes into what roles and responsibilities, because there are roles and responsibilities that are divided within the animal farm. And then there are some, and then you could also relate it to the job market, maybe in the corporate hierarchical kind of things, where you have the hierarchical structure, there is the leaders, there are the managers, and you just, in some institutions or in some corporate institution, you can see that the leader or the manager are too totalitarian, too authoritative.
Yes, definitely.
And some of the employees feel that they are being harassed from the tone of the voice, from the looks or from the work that they have been doing. Some are toiling day in, day out from maybe 10 to 5. All those works, and they are not getting promoted. The system is not giving enough things. So the one thing that I can relate to the animal farm with one particular phrase is that Napoleon at one time, while building the windmill, said that all the things that are built, or all the animals that can help in building the windmill is voluntary. Okay. But he has a but now. The same sentence has the but. But those who doesn't come to support the windmill, the ration will be cut in half. Oh, okay. So that's from the phrase of the book. So it basically is threatening the people.
It's trying to bring everyone
anyhow. So it's just using the brute force archery. It's just bringing the power, authority to the masses. So that's how. And then somehow the systemic change within the animal farm can be seen. Can be related to anything, but I think I'm not in I would say that I'm not in a position that just to generalize everything. Okay. I have long way to go further, just to keep the analysis of this and just generalize into lots of things. I might generalize. Okay. I might generalize in some settings, but it would be too naive, too amateur, and not all justice to what Orwell actually is saying, or to how others would perceive the world. Because I don't want to feel that this book is just generalization of all the political systems. It might be a satire to the political system, but political system is not only from the government that is running. It's beyond that. It's within the people. The power resides within the people, and that's what the relation is to the boxer. Actually, that somehow relates to the boxer. The boxer was a hardworking one. Yes, he toiled to death at the end. He never criticized. His only motto was, I'll work harder. The leader is always right. So that's what we don't have to do. That's what we should not do. So everything, whatever the leader says, cannot be right. So you have to have the critical mindset. I think in the 21st century, I used to have a conversation with my friends that what's the new skills that has to be have within an individual. So critical thinking was one of those. Analytical thinking was one of those in the 21st century. There are other skills, but those I can raise. So you have to have the critical mindset that you cannot just you have to question that what you don't understand. And you have to educate yourself to make sure that you have all the information in the future, that you don't deviate or you don't misinform. So you don't misinform. You just have the vague understanding of certain things. So, from my thing, I'll again just proclaim that I think I have the fear of generalization. I do it sometimes. I can just assure you that I just being a simple human being, I do generalize. And from the book, I try to portray it in different settings and see it from that perspective. But sometimes you can just enjoy the book.
Sometimes then generalization is not much important. Yeah. So I think audience is also quite clear now what Animal Farm actually holds, the context and all the characters behind it. But I would like to come back to that word again, critical thinking, that you just mentioned. So let's critically dive into the book again and see what the author, actually what kind of imagination he had while writing this book. Because generally authors only know that what is their perspective while writing. As a reader, we always have some different perspective towards it. So why do you think that the author chose to portray this situation back then in the form of animal characters rather than just writing it down directly?
I think it's just from one sentence. I think we discussed a little bit beforehand. It's just that he wanted to do the political satire. He loved the political writing. He also said that, I think, why I write. He wanted to tell that what is lies, or how you could dive into the truth, or how you could just go into the truth-seeking kind of thing. And here, I think he simply wants to have the character of the animals, in the sense that he wants to have the political satire in the art form.
Okay.
And then I think there was some. I don't remember that vaguely, but I think there was a notion that he disliked some of the intellectuals back then. Okay. But I have to.
You didn't want to mention them directly.
No, in the sense that the literary writing shouldn't have to use the big words. The English writer were using back then, the long paragraphs. It doesn't have to be long paragraphs. It has to be understood by all the peoples, mostly with the working class people. He has a sense of mind that the working class people in his mind. So with the story that he goes into the war, into the north, and so forth, and he also dived directly into the war in Catalonia, in the Burma, and he never went into the university. There is just some sense that he never went into the university because he didn't have enough money back then, but he was termed as upper middle class English family. But somehow he tells that every reader should have the understanding of what the literature is saying. Okay. So you don't have to use the big words, that have the different meanings, and you have to search for the meanings, and the long paragraphs, long sentences. So it can be short, sweet, and everyone.
But yet he made it very difficult for us to understand what he's actually trying to say because of the characters, maybe. Yeah,
maybe, but maybe it has a historical precedence, and that's why somehow. But the first time I read it, I didn't know the historical precedence of the Russian Revolution anyhow. Maybe I didn't relate Animal Farm back then to any kind of revolution.
So how did it feel like reading for the first time? It might have looked like a fun story to you, or just normal one?
No, it didn't feel the fun story to me. It made me think. The first thing it made me think. I was blank the first time. I think I told my friend back then that I was blank by reading this one. Okay. It somehow circulates from getting the animals to the last sentence, from pig to man, man to pig, and pig to man again. And nobody could distinguish who is who from pig and the man. And then it somehow translates into all the institutional corruption and something like that, how corrupt institution can be, how the resources can be misutilized, how the misinformation can be surround yourself, and you don't have the vague understanding of the reality beyond that information. And that's how the Animal Farm was it portrayed beyond the characters. The character didn't feel the animals to me anyhow. In the first moment, whenever the pigs were mentioned, something like that, when the pigs were having when the old mother was giving the speech, I didn't feel the squealing of the pigs, which we hear in the actual Animal Farm. I didn't feel that sense of listening to it. I just felt that the human sense of language that was spoken by the pigs. So the first thing, I think I didn't have the much more difficulty in the characters that they were portrayed as animals, because I just sensed that they were portraying something else. I just had the sense, but I didn't know what they were portraying back then. Then further on, I just got into the other kind of the World War and the Revolution and so forth.
Okay, so the reason that I asked why he chose the characters instead of writing it directly is that what struck in my mind is when I relate to our country, Nepal, back then, many years ago, our situation, the democracy was not there like how it is right now. So, त्यति बेला चाहिँ अब कसैले government को against मा गएर केही चीजहरू लेख्दाखेरि or केही protest kind of things गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ they would be punished. So, I was wondering if it is the same case with him, that he wanted to be safe from those kind of things and write it in the form of characters so that government would not point at him. Or is it his creativity that he is using the political satire?
No, I think from the history that I read of Orwellian life or Orwell life is that he was not the agents. He wanted to go into the front line of the World War II. So he wanted to join the army. Of the military. He couldn't do it because of his health issue. Then he wanted to go into the intelligence. And then again he couldn't do it because the intelligence never selected him.
Okay.
Then I think he voluntarily made into one of the home guards or something kind of. It's called the home guards, but it was a military kind of, paramilitary kind of thing. He went into that. He became up to the point of sergeant. So the government was actually looking at him. So government knew him. So before Spain, he was proclaiming his idea in terms of the writing. As he was very fond of socialism. After the Catalonia war, where you see his blood, all the bloods, others, the war and the state over there, he came back and he was regarded as one of the anti-communist. In that sense, he was taken. So he was never far from the government.
Okay.
He wanted into that part of the government. The government was also had the sense of his writing, his thoughts, because he was writing the essays, the column, and so forth. So I think he was not running away.
Okay.
But the only thing that he wanted is that all the people who have only the vague sense of writing and reading should also able to read and write, should also able to read and think his thoughts. I think that's the only thing. You want to go into the masses, I would say.
Okay. So it's more from the population point of view rather than from the government side.
He want to educate the populations. So
yes,
he was very fond of education. So he want to educate them.
Okay.
The education could be from different things. So he was writing. So he did it, the education. It can be from the public
kind of spreading
space.
Awareness to people that, okay, this is the system and this you should do. So you mentioned earlier that you rated books like this book many times, around 4 or 5 times. So there is definitely something that you found that holds you every time you go back to these pages and turn over and read it. So has this impacted in your life personally? Now we have seen from the societal point of view, but in your personal life, how does this hold any essence?
The one thing that it is thought that keeps me going back to it, because it's only 100 pages.
Okay.
So it gives me the sense of accomplishment that I have.
Okay.
And that's also sometimes needed, because sometimes sometimes you know the characters already, so you don't want to have the heavy thinking by reading other books and just to drain you out. So that's why I go back into that. And then somehow I think so being a graduate of conflict peace and development studies at TU, I have done done that master's degree. It's somehow I sometimes relate it to the conflict situations. Sometimes try to relate. I would say try to see how the systems are unfolding. Because at there we also be talking about different civil wars, how the conflict situation is erupting, how the leaders are being corrupted, how the totalitarian government is taking control, how the democratic forces are helping the conflict, and all the geopolitical situation. So from the historical perspective of this book also, it gives me the sense that this is the timeline on how it is. It can be. So the timeline is easily understandable when the characters are actually related. So it goes to both ways. So that's how I come back to this book. And it's like how the Orwell try to portray it is easier to read. There are not too big words, not too big paragraphs. The chapters are short and sweet. You can just read it within 2 hours maybe, and you can remember all the characters. Maybe, so if you want to think beyond the characters, it's up to the readers. Up to you, but that sense of having the easy reading also gives me the encouragement to come back to it.
Okay, So you basically read it for your understanding of this contemporary society and what changes are going on and relate to it. So next we have a small segment in the book talk today. It's a rapid fire round. So I will be asking you some fun, interesting questions which is related to books, any kind of books. And you can give some one-liner word or as short answer as possible very quickly. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So some might be hypothetical too. A disclaimer. If you were a character in Animal Farm, which would you choose to be and why?
I'd go with Snowball.
Okay.
Because he has the vision to just go beyond his own farm.
All right. Who do you think would handle the leadership better than the pigs? There, like, if any other animal character you would choose to be the leader.
From the Animal Farm, it is portrayed, it's only the pigs that can handle.
Okay.
Only from the selection of the pigs I can just
All right. So, if you could cast actors, let's say real people, to play the roles of these animals, then who would you choose to be? Just the names. Napoleon, Snowball, and Boxer.
I need to think about it.
Sure.
But Napoleon is definitely Stalinized. It's just how the book contextualized. I think Snowball is much more. I think I'll go with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Okay.
He has that witty kind of vision. His flames sometimes portrays that kind of thing. I think
Boxer.
Boxer would be maybe the character from Rocky film.
Okay.
Sylvester Stallone. Because he was toiling down that path in that whole series, in the Rocky series. So I'll say with the Sylvester Stallone.
All right. So, what is that one book which left a lasting impact on you till date?
Back in 2010, I read The Sophie's Old.
Okay.
I don't remember the writer, but I remember the book. The Sophie's Old is one of the... I don't remember anything now. Just somehow there was a mention of all the philosophies, all those things. And then there was one sentence from the Plato or Socrates which stated that, in the book, it was stated that you shouldn't just jump into the conclusion.
Okay.
That's the statement. But it was heavy at that time for me. And I regard it at the top of my book reading.
Okay. So if you were stranded on a deserted island and you could have only one book with you, which would that be?
I think if I have to be stranded in an island, then I'd go with a series of books, the long series with the J.R. Tolkien.
Okay, so you're very smart that you want to spend the whole time reading the series. You didn't choose a short book. So Animal Farm would definitely not be the option.
Because, no.
It's very short.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you could erase one book from your memory to experience the joy of reading it again, which would that be?
I think I have erased some of the things from the Sophie's Old, so I've erased it and read it again.
Okay. Which book do you think should turn into a movie or series?
There is already a movie on the Lord of the Rings, so I really like it. From a point of movies and series, I think it's hard to tell. But on the front of the documentary kind of series, I'd go with Why Nation Fell.
Okay. So, which author would you like to have a dinner party with and why?
It would be J.R. Tolkien.
Okay. Why would you choose?
Because his sense of imagination on the Lord of the Rings, it's beyond what I have perceived, the characters, all those plots. It would be definitely J.R. Tolkien.
So, if you were to rewrite the ending of this book, Animal Farm, what would you write? What would the conclusion be if you were the writer?
No, I'll keep it that way. I like the ending very much.
Okay.
I like the pigs to man, man to pig, and pig to man again. It's the most how you call it? It's the most thing that is started, and it's the ending. So it just has a circular thing. So
Okay.
I keep it that way.
Okay, so you kind of satisfied with the conclusion.
Very much.
All right. So last question. Imagine your life as a book, and what would that title be? If you were a book, if your life was a book.
The Explorer.
Okay. So you're basically the kind of person who likes to explore, travel.
I like to think that I'm like that kind of person. I may not, but I like to think that way.
Okay. All right. So here we come to the end of Rapid Fire. Now coming back to the book again. Which is your most favorite thing from this book? And what would you like to tell audience that this is something that attracts you to read the book and you must read the book?
The favorite thing would be the commandment, the one commandment that says, no animal shall kill another animal without causes. I think that part actually hits you in a different way, because now the animals are killing each other. And that's how we can also, you can actually visualize in the real scenario. And that came into that position after all the things had to build up, and the power has subsidized into one anarchy kind of thing. So I think that's the one.
So do you think the title Animal Farm kind of justifies the whole story? Or if you would want to change it?
No, I'll not change. Animal could be anything. We can't be animals. So the farm is just the settings over there. It's not the literal meaning of the farms over. It's the literal settings over there, but it's not the literal meaning. It has much more meaning beyond the animals and the farm. And over there, so that's why I like the ending. Pigs to man, man to pig, and pig to man. And they couldn't decide which was which. So which was the animal, which was the pigs, which was the human. So Animal Farm is all of those. So I think it'll be just like this.
Okay, so it quite justifies the overall context. So before we end, what would you like to tell the audience as a reader of this book? How would you ask the audience to choose this genre to help them read?
I would say forget all the historical perspective and read it just as you want to read it. And if you start the Animal Farm, then go to the 1984 of George Orwell. It's both correlates. If you can't do it parallelly, then do it. 1984 will get Animal Farm will start you off, and 1984 will take you off.
Okay. So dear audience, that's all for today. I hope you pretty much enjoyed our intellectual discussion over Animal Farm by George Orwell. And I'm very sure that you are also equally excited as me to grab this book and go through it, what's inside of it, and what's the secret, or let's say satire behind all the characters here. But as our guest mentioned today, let's see it more from our reader's perspective rather than the historical or political. So thank you for watching, and thank you, Mr. Satyal, for coming as a guest and enlightening us with the knowledge that this book holds.
Thank you. Thank you all.
You're most welcome. So book lovers, see you all in the next episode again. This is me, Seleska Sharma, signing off from today. Also, if you would like to join us in our podcast as guest, click the link in the comment section below. And thank you for watching.